Welcome to Ridgewood Talks. Through this podcast, we will be introducing you to some of the leaders and legends in our village. We'll keep you updated about fascinating local events. We'll dig into the town's hot topics and so much more. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Jeannie Johnson, the founder of Ridgewood Talks and Ridgewood Walks. The goal of these initiatives is to create a kinder, more connected, and more vibrant community. I'm thrilled to be hosting this podcast with my good friend and all-around wonderful guy, Jordan Kaufman. We look forward to meeting with you weekly and hearing your thoughts on who and what you'd like to learn about in our beautiful hometown. For now, be kind, do good, and enjoy this episode. Here we go.
Okay. Hey, Jordan. What's going on in Bergen County, New Jersey?
Everything's good here.
Well, that sounds good.
So our guest is on the board of the YMCA. And one of the great things that the YMCA and our sponsor, Ridgewood AM Rotary, have in common is that the YMCA actually hosts the Ridgewood AM Rotary's morning meetings on Thursdays at 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. And it's fantastic. Our meetings are hybrid. So they've got a whole technology set up for the organization to be able to, stream and get members who can't make it to attend via Zoom. And obviously the preferred method in person where people can really network and socialize. For those who aren't familiar with Ridgewood AM Rotary, it's very involved in community service, volunteership, local philanthropy, and really connecting the fabric of the community. And Ridgewood AM Rotary is also part of Rotary International, which is a global organization which we can basically thank for solving the polio crisis. So great organization. We want to thank them for sponsoring our show. And with that, let's get to the scheduled programming.
You know what? We're so lucky today because we have an amazing person on our show. She is one of Ridgewood's most well-known power brokers. Her name is Dr. Karen Latimer. And in fact, I will say she's one of the most impressive people that I have had the privilege of knowing. Her most important roles are that of wife and mother to 5 children. She is also a family physician, a wellness and parenting coach, a health and parenting advocate, a writer, an app developer, and a blogger. Karen received her medical degree from Stony Brook University School of Medicine and completed her residency at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York City. She practices medicine in Hackensack at the Bergen Volunteer Medical Initiative, which is a much-needed free clinic for the working poor and uninsured. Karen also has a philanthropic entrepreneurial side. She was the founder and director of Give and Learn, a nonprofit organization that was dedicated to enriching the education of disadvantaged New York City school children. And recently, Karen, along with her daughter, co-founded the Helium Project. That is a student-run initiative designed to address mental wellness in children, tweens, and teens. Karen says she was inspired by the gift of time she is given to connect with her patients at BVMI, prompting her to pursue health and life coaching certifications. And as a wellness coach, she is most passionate about helping adolescents and parents achieve their personal goals and find their way in our overwhelming culture. Karen says she is a frequent contributor and doer of anything that needs to be done. And that explains why she started a medical and family blog called Yes 5, a lifestyle website called Tips from Town. She developed an app called Listum and hosts a podcast called Save the Change. She has written 2 Audible original books titled Take Back the House, Raising Happy Parents, and Worry Less, Parent Better. Karen has appeared on ABC's Healthy Living, World News Tonight, Good Morning America, and on the parenting and wellness pages of AOL.com and Verizon. So Karen, I really want to thank you for making time in your busy schedule to be with us today. I want to start off by finding out, how old are your kids now?
Oh my gosh, you're going to age me, Jeannie. First of all, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Jeannie and Jordan. My children are now 22, 21, 19, almost 19, and the twins are 14. I had to think about that.
So I just want to ask you, for those who are listening here, I know this is a super hard question, but what stage in parenting has been the most challenging? I'm just going to just be really honest. The most challenging part for me in parenting has been parenting my children as adults, kind of trying to figure out how that works. So how has it been for you? Which stage is the best or the most challenging for you?
I'm not to disagree with you, but I'm going to go the complete opposite. I love my sleep, and those newborn stages, it's great when they put that new baby in your arms, but then they expect you to take it home and take care of it, is the hardest for me. Those first 3 months.
Yeah, that is pretty tough.
Plus, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to feel like you're in, a magical fantasy world and just in love with this baby all the time. But the truth is you're exhausted and scared.
True that. And Jordan, I bet you can relate to that too.
I think we can all agree that the early stages of parenting have both some of the highest joys and some of the most humbling moments that you get to experience as a parent.
It's also the time where you feel the least confident. And for me, I think that is a challenge.
Definitely. So you know what, Karen, you have so much experience in so many areas, and I really want to start off by diving into this by finding out which initiatives that I mentioned before are on your front burner.
Thank you for asking, because you rattled off so many things, and some of them, are definitely on my back burner. But, I'm at BVMI seeing patients, which I absolutely love doing. I am trying to get this healing project off the ground, though Lorelei is now in California, but we're still very excited about that. And my role as a board member at the Ridgewood Y has me pretty busy these days. I recently raised my hand to be the Community Outreach and World Service Committee chair, and we're trying to do some really cool things in town with that. So and of course, the app that I'm working on is really taking up most of my time, but that's been the most exciting endeavor as well. So I'm a Gemini, so I like to juggle, and this is when I feel the most fulfilled. So I have a lot of things on the front burner, but it's okay. My burners are capable.
Let's talk about BVMI. How many days a week do you work there?
Right now, just one.
Okay. So for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar with BVMI, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that? And Karen, if I'm not mistaken, you volunteer your time to be there. Is that right?
I do. So, I had been in private medical practice before the twins were born. After they came with the 5 kids, it felt like a challenge to go back. I wanted to go back on a volunteer basis because I really miss seeing patients, but I didn't want to commit to that full-time job. And as you guys can imagine, primary care, it's a revolving door of patients, and you don't really get to spend a ton of time with each of the patients, as you know, probably from your own doctor visits. And I wanted that kind of luxury of time that you mentioned before. So I started volunteering at BVMI. Ann Robinson, who's a Ridgewood mom and a pediatrician, had recommended the organization to me, and I'm forever grateful. I'm almost at 10 years now. And it's a clinic that provides free medical care for the working uninsured. So all of the people that I like to say really enhance my life and make my life better, the people who, are cleaning houses and taking care of your lawn and your landscaping and working in the restaurants that you frequent and doing your nails, and all of these folks who really would forego medical care because they wouldn't be able to afford it if they weren't getting it for free. And we offer it there for free to them with the help of a bunch of hospitals in the area, which we're ever grateful for. Quest Diagnostics does our labs for free. Our patients really do get excellent care, and I have ample time to see each of my patients, which is very helpful, especially since most of them are Spanish speaking, and my Spanish is not great. So having a lot of time actually really helps me feel like I'm doing a good job when it comes to them. So it's a great place to be.
I can imagine that it's so fulfilling to be able to really be there for those patients. That's one of the things that I really miss about healthcare now, is that our physicians they kind of just take our list of ailments and they check them off, and they don't really hear what we're saying. They just get us in and out real quickly. So I really love that you have the time to actually get to know your patients and let them know how much you care. And that's one of the other things that I wanted to mention to you too. So as I'm listening to you on your Audible books and I've listened to your podcast, I really, your care and compassion is just so evident. You're just one of the most big-hearted people that I've ever known. So those patients are really lucky to have you. I want to talk now a little bit more about the YMCA Wellness Initiative. Tell us more about your role on the board, as you mentioned earlier, and what that entails.
Yeah, so this is super exciting because I came on as a Y board member pretty close to right before COVID hit. Always kind of feeling I could be additive in the wellness space, was excited about that. And then, other things took over and it was hard even just to keep the doors open and to do the things we wanted to do, like feeding people who are food insecure and running blood drives and, all of the kinds of things we needed to do during COVID without actually having membership dues. And so it really became a very different mission. And we're finally at the point 4 years later, you guys, it's amazing that it's 4 years, ago that we were kind of shut down. But 4 years later, we're at the point where we can do more. So that's what we're trying to do. We have Ramon Hache, who's the new CEO. He's got a lot of vision. He got together an autism task force, which was to try to help us come up with some autism and adaptive programming at the Y, and that's been really exciting. And then I sort of took what he had done, which was to get a lot of interested parties in the community together into one room, face to face. As you mentioned, Jordan, like the most important way to communicate is really face to face, and got everyone together, and it seemed to really gain some momentum. So I did the same with mental wellness. I invited a bunch of people in town who I thought might be interested in coming together to talk about how do we make a community well, right? How do we affect the individual by actually changing the fabric of the community? And everyone I asked said yes, and that was pretty incredible. Mark Schwartz, who was the new superintendent, said yes immediately, brought some other folks from the Ridgewood Public Schools. It was really inspiring. It's new. I'm excited. If anyone's listening and wants to get involved, please, definitely reach out to me. But our goal is really to take a real look at what wellness is and see how we initiate programming in town that kind of crosses all the boundaries. It's not just the school's responsibility. It's not just the parents' responsibility. It's not just the church's responsibility, or the houses of worship's responsibility, or the Y's responsibility. But if we all come together, we can all kind of, have a collective responsibility to make some changes. Mental wellness is a human right, and I feel like it's important as a community to address it and to acknowledge that the mental health in our society, especially for our children, I won't belabor this, is just on a downward trajectory and has been for a while. So it's time to at least try to make a difference, right? Can we move the needle even a tiny bit? I think it's, exciting and worth giving it a shot.
Absolutely. We had Ramon Hache on the show, and he did mention this autism initiative, and it's for adults, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
What came out of the task force, it wasn't the intention. What came out of it was sort of that we saw a gap and a need, so we wanted to fill it. So we, what came from the meetings and the task force was that there is a real need for social events and experiences for young adults with autism, because they're 18, they finish with the schools, maybe they're in the STEPS program, they have a couple more years, but after that, there aren't too many outlets for them in terms of, just getting together and being with friends and socializing. And that's a real help to the parents. It's a real help to the people with autism. And so that really is our focus right now. Where I personally, and what I got, the feel from the room was that we could offer to, middle schoolers and programming to, younger people as well. There just seems to be like a real need, like loneliness and isolation is a real problem in our society, but is a super real problem for people with autism.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the families of people with autism too, it's very isolating because a lot of times these families, it's very challenging to bring their family members out into public, into restaurants and so forth. So I think it'll be really helpful for the families as well. I know Ramon mentioned that on the weekends, the Y closes at 3. So, maybe the swim programs can be available to adults with autism and so on. So I'm very excited to learn more about this. And as you get the information, please share it with us so we can let our listeners know and we can help you distribute the information on our social media platforms. I just want to say thank you for doing that.
My thoughts are, let's just try to do something, right? Let's not get paralyzed by the enormity of the problem.
I love that you're tackling this mental wellness issue. And I want to have you help us understand what it is specifically that you would like to accomplish with this initiative. And then also just kind of let's dive in to figure out why there is such a rise in all of the anxiety and depression, and frankly, lack of communication. What keys do we need to unlock some of these mysteries of why this is so pervasive in our society?
Jeannie, gosh, I wish I had the answer to that, right? I mean, I have theories. But in terms of your first question, just what I'd like to accomplish, I'd like to, in a very concrete way, accomplish community-wide campaigns and programs that deliver messages about positive mental wellness and the importance of it and how we can maintain positive mental wellness. Oftentimes it's things that we kind of know, but when you're reminded, it makes a difference. When I work on this stuff, it reminds me that I need to eat different, that I need to sleep more, that I need to laugh more, that I need to, engage socially with other people, that I need to exercise more. All of the things that are scientifically backed to help our mental health. I would like to see campaigns that have the kids in the schools, age appropriate information getting out to the kids in the elementary schools, the middle schools, the high school, information getting out to the parents, the houses of worship, putting out some information, and whatever their channels are. You guys doing that, the Rotary doing that, the Y doing it. It's kind of what I do with the Healing Project. So I'll just steal from the Healing Project a little bit, but or this month is laughter is, what a difference it makes, right? And we talk about the science behind it and why it's important. And we just start giving the messaging in a way that, listen, Coke and Pepsi know exactly how to do. You just say the same thing in different ways over and over, and all of a sudden it starts to get ingrained a little bit. I'd like to see us just kind of take a little of the air out of this pressure-filled balloon, start recognizing what's really important, kind of start putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to we only want our children to be happy phrase, and do it as a community where it feels normal to focus on the things that truly matter, as opposed to focusing on the things that drive all the competition that these kids are feeling.
That's really well said.
But I'm really hopeful that it can happen now.
I'm really excited that there is an organized effort to address this in our community. And again, we're so fortunate in Ridgewood that we have so many volunteers that want to tackle this. And I think the Y is the right place to do this because, like we mentioned, you do service so many other municipalities within Bergen County. And I also just wanted to say, I loved what you said about getting a good night's sleep and how laughter is so important. And now we're on the heels of St. Patrick's Day. And what is the old proverb from the Irish? It's a good laugh and a long sleep are the two best cures. So whatever we can do to kind of facilitate that, I think it's all of our jobs to do that, right? So what are some of the things that you have planned for this initiative? I mean, how are you going to kick it off? Or are you still in the building stages of it? Let us know where you're at with this.
Yeah, we're still we've only had the one meeting. So a lot of this is happening in my own head, but very simply, we want to put a resource page together, on the Y. We're doing that for autism, so that there's just one spot for parents and families and kids to go in terms of resources. One for mental wellness, one for folks with autism. And the vibe in the room was very much of hey, how are we going to move forward? But the conversation really was very centered around, okay, what's the problem and what do we want to sort of focus on? And what came out of that is that what we're equipped to do, we're not all mental health professionals in the room. What we're equipped to do is foster positive mental wellness and what it takes to get there, and send the message that everybody needs it. Everybody needs physical exercise. Everybody needs to work on their mental health as well, especially today in the society, which is hell-bent on keeping us from doing that. And that's the focus we want to have, this very light, very positive focus, while at the same time making sure that people who are in true crisis have access to resources. So it's a big mission, Jeannie. We're just going to tackle it. We're just going to take it on. I think, being a physician, first do no harm. I don't think we can cause any harm here. And I think we can only possibly help move the needle. I worked with a woman once who worked in suicide prevention, and she said she lives her every day saying, if at the end of my life I have helped one person, that will have been enough. And I think that's a great starting place for us to just be humble about what we can accomplish, but also kind of get going and do the work.
Yeah, that's a great point, Karen. Being that your neighbor across the street in the YMCA is West Bergen Mental Health Care, and you guys are taking on this mental health wellness program. Can you talk a little bit about any collaboration that you guys are doing with that organization and joint efforts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Michael Tizzoli is the best, right? And he's an amazing, empathetic, intelligent, caring person, and he has been at all of these meetings. So He's very much a part of it, and we will definitely rely on his and the whole staff there, their expertise when it comes to true mental illness, as opposed to this idea of promoting just more robust mental health. So we have him as a resource and as a partner, and that's pretty amazing, and quite frankly sort of settling as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great asset that you guys have with both the location and also the strong relationship that you guys have together. If any of our listeners who are moved by this, want to get involved, want to learn more, what would be some of the resources that they can look to or reach out to?
Right now, I would think the best way to do it would be just to get in touch with me. Grassroots effort, grassroots answer. No, we don't have a formal anything set in place. We also don't even have a formal name for it yet. We're tossing around some things. So anyone can get in touch with me anytime. It's Dr. Dr. Karen Latimer at gmail.com. Happy to hear from everybody. Again, it's truly one of those times where I feel like it takes a village, and we're lucky enough to be in a village where people do get involved. So please reach out.
Well, I'm reaching out right now, Karen. I can't wait to be some sort of assistance in any way that you could use my platform, or if there's anything that I can do to assist in this effort, I am happy to do so. And we will include your email address in the show notes. So hopefully people that are listening, you will reach out to Dr. Latimer and you can put your 2 cents into this too, because it's a critical need in our community. It's a critical need in our country and across the globe. So thank you again for spearheading that effort too, Karen. You're really incredible. And, you've got some other really fun things. I'm dying to learn more about this Listum app.
This is my baby right now. My babies are 14, so this app has become my baby. I'm very, very excited about this. It's one of those times where just good fortune meets you, and having an idea and seeing it come to life has been a truly incredible experience. And I just love to learn about new things. And a year ago, I knew nothing about app development, and now I know a little more, and it's been wild. But the app is something that I just felt like I needed for a long time. I just couldn't believe that the app didn't exist. I wanted a place to put all of the things that I have to remember that I do put in my phone already, but I put them in notes. I take screenshots. I text myself. There's reminders. There's just a slew of different places to put it. But then the truth is, when I wanted to find that book recommendation, or that, Netflix show a friend told me to watch, or the wine I liked, or, my passport numbers, or whatever it may be, I didn't know where I put it. I knew I put it somewhere. I just didn't know where I put it. So I just kind of sat with this idea for years, until I was at a dinner with a bunch of other women, everyone shouting out recommendations. You have to see, you have to read, you have to buy, you have to love this wine. I love this. What's that recipe? And I said, this is why I need that app. And I started talking about it, and they all got really excited about it and said, you have to try. So this is a pretty good Ridgewood story. Mark Kosick, I don't know if you guys know Mark, he developed GroupSpot. He's a friend. So I called Mark and I just said, listen, what would it take if I wanted to do it? And he said, who you should really talk to is Jason Harper. He's actually your neighbor. He lives down the block, and he is, an app developer. He was a CTO of his last company. His company got sold. He's got some time, if you want to reach out to him. I did, just to talk to him. And by the end of the conversation, we had coffee together. We had never met before. He lives 5 houses away from me. I knew his wife a little bit, and I knew his son a little bit. And we had coffee, and at the end he said, there's a new coding language I've been wanting to learn, which nobody I know has ever said that to me before. And I would love to try it out with this. I think this is a great idea. I would love to give it a shot. And fast forward, a little over a year, and we now have this fantastic app. Our latest update just came out. It's super exciting. It really works. People who are using it love it. As a family, we don't know what we did before it. We keep all of our, everything that we need to communicate as a family in there, our insurance cards, with my kids being different parts of the country. It's just been great for us. And it kind of ties into my wellness mindset, because there are great things about social media. The sharing of information is great, but then there are some toxic things about social media, and I feel like it's an app that lets you be a little bit social. I kid around, it's like socialite, without having to really expose yourself. You can put your recommendations on there for people, things that you love, find things that other people love, without actually having to take the perfect picture with the perfect filter.
That's really a very cool effort. And I think, as someone who does so much and is so involved, and then also has 5 children, I'm sure that having a resource like this just allows you to be able to do all these things. Because as you talk about your list of accomplishments, it's incredible. And the number of things that you're juggling, it's incredible. So, often it's people, but what are the tools? What's the trick? How did you do it? Sounds like this app is part of that formula.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Jordan. It helps. It really does. I have an idea for the Save the Change podcast and I put it in my Save the Change folder on Listum. Everything's filed away in folders. So it's just, exactly where you put it. It's a time saver for me. Recipes are amazing. I love to cook. Recipes are amazing on there because I hated, scrolling through the recipes on the internet, right? With all the ads and the videos and you feel like you're,
Yeah,
gonna have a
it's
seizure from
terrible.
trying to find the recipe. Terrible. So now I just copy and paste it into like into an item on one of my recipe lists, and I have it forever, and I can just read it like old school. It's almost like an index card, but it's digital.
And I got to just say that's the first thing that I took from your shares on Listum are the recipes. There's a lot to love about that. I'm still learning the app. It's stupid to say. I know you just got done saying it's a real time saver. And for me, I just have to find the time to understand how to use it. My eyes are getting old. And so I need a bigger phone so I can figure it out a little bit better.
We have such a challenge because it's a habit change. And as you guys probably know, changing somebody's habit, I know this from being a doctor, changing a habit is one of the hardest things to do. So we're all in such a habit of just texting ourselves the link to that recipe or, writing it down in our notes, which is great. Like, notes is great. It just doesn't have the capacity to do what we can do, which is lots of great detail if you want to, simple lists, detailed lists, links will pop up and load automatically. It can be used very simply, or it can be used in a more kind of fun, complex, interesting way, which is kind of what I love about it. You can keep lists private just for yourself, or you can be social and make your list public. But it is a habit change. I acknowledge that it's hard to do, but it's one of those things that the people who are now like really starting to do it, putting it in Listum has become the habit instead of, putting it in their notes. And I'm getting really great feedback about that.
It's fantastic. It's going to be a life changer for me too, because I'm always trying to keep so many things organized. And I keep getting this thing that pops up on my phone that says that I am out of storage.
Well, that's the other thing, you could take a picture. So say, I would do that a lot. I would take a picture of something I wanted to remember, but I'd keep it in my camera roll, which
exactly,
then I want to tell somebody what it's doing. I'm sitting there rudely on my camera roll, like scrolling through, trying to find the thing I want to show them, which is incredibly rude. Or I'm sitting there trying to write it down at dinner, whereas we have a feature, it's called Quick Capture. You just, open the app, click the button, take the picture, it stores it. You can file it away later in a place that you'll find it. So it's super quick and easy. It's free. So it's no harm in trying it, but it's, just trying to change your habit. It's not so much easier in the moment of the recording the information, even though I think it is a little easier, but it's not so much easier as it is so much easier to find it again and to share it when you want to share something. And that's where the real value comes in. But again, Jason's a genius. It's been incredible to work with him. I've learned a ton. It's been amazing.
Very, very cool. It's also, inspiring to know that, someone who's got so many different things and you didn't have the tech competency, but you combined what you know about what you were looking for and found someone who, had the expertise in coding, and this all kind of happens. I think that's an inspiring story.
Yeah. Yes.
And Listum is available on the Apple App Store, I know, because I downloaded it.
It's just available on iOS right now, and it's List''M, and we're new, so you have to actually put it in that way to find it easily. So List''M, you'll find it.
And we'll include that in our show notes too. So listeners, just don't you worry. You just click right onto that. All this information is going to be listed there. So you can reach out and you can get all of this great stuff. Thing that I just think is so funny. I'm sorry, but learning a new code language is exciting to this gentleman, to Jason. I love that.
It's amazing to watch people's minds work, right? When they're excited about something and the logic that it takes. Sort of interesting to me. And he'll describe something and I'm like, this is exactly the way the neural system works. It's exactly the way the brain works. It's exactly the way the brain talks to, your muscles and your synapses and all of it. And the correlation there is both fascinating and kind of a little scary, when it comes to what's going on with AI. I'm like, oh, but it's been very, very rewarding to see it come to life and to kind of get the feedback when people are using it and improve it and just make it better for people. And it's been wonderful.
I really sense your passion for this. And like I mentioned earlier too, I really sense your passion for just doing good in general. I want to learn more about the Helium Project. I know you started that with your daughter. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Lorelai, who's now a freshman at San Diego State University in California, tried to start a wellness club at the high school. Then COVID hit. It just didn't for a variety of reasons. It just didn't take off. And she was working with some other students when it didn't. They weren't kind of making the headway they wanted. And I said to them before they went to college, I said, or I guess junior year before a few of the seniors went to college because Lorelai was still there. I said, what would have worked, you guys? Like let's not get frustrated. Let's say, okay, what could we have done differently? Like what could have, made a little bit of a difference and made this easier for you? And what they said was, if we had a curriculum, if we had, maybe they didn't use that word, but they said they were describing like if we had something set in stone that we knew to fall back on, then, maybe we could have gotten it through the administration a little easier. Or maybe if it had been like something that was a year-long thing had gotten approved at the beginning. So what they were basically describing was a project. So we kind of got to work and put together like a plug and play project that is student run, that requires very little effort from the administrators, that does offer more for schools to do in terms of like teacher involvement and, little 5-minute exercises that teachers can do. But it's kind of based around the same foundations I talked about with what I'd like to accomplish from the community wellness standpoint, which is, let's not just bring a speaker in one time to talk about the importance of this particular topic, but let's sort of permeate the ideas in a very accessible way that students can relate to about certain topics, so that, maybe in a time of struggle, they fall back on this thing and it's filed away in the back of their head somewhere, and they remember like, what I learned somewhere, but I really learned it. That, again, I'm picking on sleep and laughter and time management, and just the little things we can do to change the space around us, and foods that make you feel good. And so it's a compilation of campaigns that would be a week long in a school that students can run, that have social media components and morning announcement components and little extra events and posters, and all of this is already done for the students, so they can access it right on the website and just print out the posters or pop up the social media posts, or they can be flexible and do more and make it their own. It's very flexible. It's strictly a passion project. It costs nothing. We're in 4 schools now. We have a school in Texas. Like, I'm really excited about where it's going. I do wish I had a tiny bit more time in a day to focus a little bit more on it, but it's got an upward trajectory, and it is, I think, starting to pick up some steam. I think the concepts are good. Again, it's kind of the foundations of positive, robust mental health is available to everybody, and is something we should work on. And let's just be lighter about it, right? Like, that's why it's called the Helium Project. The kids said they were sick of the word wellness. They were sick of being told to meditate, and that would make everything better. Although I'm a fan of meditation, they just wanted to feel lighter. They didn't want their lives to feel so heavy. Teenagers, used to be a little bit more about having fun, and now I feel like everything feels so serious for them. So it was just a way to kind of lighten the mood in a school a little bit. Nothing is scolding. Nothing is saying you should do this, you should do that. None of the information is delivered that way. It's a nice project. It's nice. You can check it out. It's helium-project.com. And if anyone wants access to the campaigns, just shoot me an email. I get you in on the back end.
It's really incredible what you're doing. And I can't help but notice that you are volunteering your time at BVMI. You're saying that the app is free. You're providing these materials for the Helium Project. Who is behind the financing of all of that? Is that something that you're doing too?
Jeannie, are you like in cahoots with my husband? Why are you picking on me?
Oh, well, because I tend to land in the same category where my husband's like, look, I can't retire because you're too busy giving shit away.
Listen, BVMI is more valuable to me personally than money. So that's, that's what that is. Listum, we do hope to make some money someday on Listum. Right now, our goal is just to create a useful product. Someday we hope to have like tiers where people have more advanced features and would pay, a few dollars a month for that. Right now we're giving, all of those features for free. Anyone who signs on now will have them forever. Someday we hope to charge new users a little bit. So we do have plans to try to make some money on that. We want an ad-free environment, which is challenging in the space because, as with Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, really, you're not their customer, you're their product, right? They're selling you and your information. And we just feel very strongly that that is something we never want to do. So we'll look for other ways to make it hopefully profitable, and that's exciting. And the Helium Project, what does it cost? It's the investment of time, concern. I have kids helping me, like kids will do the campaigns, and what it takes to run a website. It's not a high cost situation at all. So all of these things are low cost, maybe high effort, but for whatever reason, that's kind of what makes me happy.
Right. Well,
So,
they're impactful and they're meaningful. And
mhm.
so I really appreciate that you're doing that. And I like that you are always willing to collaborate with people and to get your message out there and to really do serious good for the world. So, Karen, some of the other things that I want to talk about are, first of all, your Audible books are incredible. And you talked about the lightness that, some of our kids need to kind of lighten up their load. And I think that if I understood the messaging in your Audible books and even the messaging in your podcast, is that you're trying to help parents sort of lighten their load too and enjoy the process of raising children. And actually, we're not raising children, are we? We're raising adults. So talk to me a little bit more about some of the efforts that you're making to help parents enjoy this part of their life.
For lack of a more intelligent way to say this, it just really bums me out how stressed and busy and even like sad parents have become. It used to be this very normal life stage. You either had children or you didn't. And you had children, they were just incorporated into your life and your family. We now look at as a job and as if, there was going to be some reward at the other end. If we created this perfect child, or if we gave them every opportunity, and it, quite frankly, it's just put so much pressure on the role of parent. When people are like, oh, you have the hardest job, I'm like, please don't say that. That's not my job. I can't be fired. I've wanted to be fired and I can't be fired. Like, it is not a job to me. It is just part of my personal human experience, and it's one of the most joyful, wonderful parts of my human experience for me personally. I mean, there are hard times. Of course, there are hard times. And do I worry? Yeah, of course I worry. But I'm very cognizant of just kind of not taking myself so seriously, and knowing that when I gave birth to these people, they came out as their own little human beings. And yes, I can clothe them and feed them and steer them in the right direction. And I can do what I can, but I cannot write the script, and nor should I try. And just taking the pressure off of myself in that way has been really helpful to me personally. So that's kind of the message I just want to spread. I just want to, never telling anybody what to do. We should all be listening to our gut. Strict parenting advice scares me. I think, everyone's parenting different individual children. I don't know how we can have strict parenting advice. It doesn't make sense in every situation. But generally speaking, there are things that we can do to just make ourselves more content and add more joy to our lives, and make our children's lives and their childhood, which I feel like is something really valuable that we dismiss in a lot of instances, like this unbelievable opportunity just to be a child. I feel like we can do more with less effort to make all of those things better and more fulfilling. And I just like talking about it. I just like to say, like, hey, let's just think about this, right? If I do, on Save the Change, if I'm not going to say, hey, do this, but I just like, hey, just consider maybe if you did this or tried this or thought about this way, maybe everybody could just feel a little bit better. I hate to use the word happier, because actually I think that's part of the problem with our mental health crisis, is the focus on, happy as a goal, but, just lighter, and allow parents just to feel more capable, right? I feel like parents are struggling because they think they're doing everything wrong, but we all just listen to our gut a little bit more. We'd probably find that, love will drive us in the right direction if we allow it.
Right. And I think the messaging, again, that I hear in your podcast and in your Audible books is that you really just want parents to feel more confident and content. And I like that you focus on the parenting piece of it, but it's also our kids too. We just want them to be confident and content. And you and I had talked a little earlier, and we kind of brought it down to, I think, 3 simple things for me. What my takeaway from our last conversation is just to love them, to listen to them, and to let them be. It's not our job to, form them into what we think they should be. It's our job to listen to them and let them be who they need to be, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, it's hubris to imagine that we know the right path for them. It's speaking to our ego to say that if we got our wish and dictated exactly, this path for them and this school for them and that would lead them to happiness. Happiness is a fleeting emotion, but we say it all the time, like we just want our kids to be happy, but really in our society, and listen, I'm so guilty of this as well. I speak of this because I'm like in the trenches here. I'm not saying that I'm doing everything right by any stretch, but we're really kind of taking away their right to just be who they were meant to be. And I think that's a shame and leads to, real unhappiness and problems.
Right. And I think that so many of us, myself included, I am very guilty of sort of following the crowd and not really trusting my gut that I know how to let my children be, because we are, after all, human beings, not human doings. So, I love that little phrase of just let it be. Just let it be. Let them be. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I thought it was nice. But just to circle back to this idea, and you said like, what's wrong? How has this happened? How are our kids more sad and more stressed than ever before? And it's kind of despite our best efforts, right? Because there's more and more literature about it. There's more therapy. There's more drugs. There's more effort to kind of swing them in the opposite direction. And yet we're just really still headed in the wrong direction. And it's like the best of intentions. And I think the piece of the puzzle that we are missing is just to acknowledge that being human requires, and it's a gift actually, to experience the entire range of human emotion. Yes, it's uncomfortable to be stressed. It's uncomfortable to be sad. It's uncomfortable to be disappointed, but that's really just part of being human. And when we try to fix this, when the message we always send is any negative emotion requires fixing, it puts so much pressure on them to be perfect, to be happy, to be successful, to be popular, to be, whatever it may be, as opposed to just saying like, oh, that stinks that happened. That's bad. Yeah, I can relate. I felt like that before. And yeah, that's terrible. Hopefully tomorrow is a better day. Instead we try to fix everything. And I do think that's at least worth considering that it's part of the problem, right? We can blame social media, but I do think, our desire to make everything better for them whilst coming from a beautiful place, parental love, what is better and stronger is sort of damaging too. And I think we have to give it some thought.
I agree. I think validation is so key too. If your kid is feeling a certain way, let them feel it.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's part of the range of human emotion. So let them feel what they're feeling and just be supportive to them. I wish I would have known all these things back when. I want to go back to your podcast. I'm intrigued by the name, Save the Change. Give me some background on that.
So I started doing it and then I let it lapse and I kind of lost all those podcasts. And then just recently I decided to bring it back. And in just these short little snippets, I know no one has time or attention. Like we're giving everyone a long podcast today, and I'm so grateful for people who are still listening. And hopefully you're folding laundry or on the treadmill or driving home from work. But it's little snippets sometimes work too, and it's just that there's a coaching term, and it's probably overused, but I like it. Little hinges swing big doors.
And that's good. That's really good.
I see it constantly. I see it in my practice. I learned it in medical school. If I have a patient who loses 5 pounds, they can drop their cholesterol by enough to not go on medication sometimes. When we think big, when we think we have to do like major things, I have to U-Haul, I have to be a different parent, I have to be a different person, I have to, work out every day when I have to do these things. First of all, those things aren't sustainable. They never happen. They're too big. And the opposite is when we just say, like, I'm going to do one small thing. I'm going to make one little change. It often has an enormous impact. And then those little changes start piling up, and they build upon each other, and they're just easier to make last, right? So if I just said to you, like, one small thing you can do, when you're feeling triggered by your child, child who has, problems or throwing tantrums or whatever it may be, when you're feeling triggered, or, a teenager who's giving you attitude, just count to 5. Now, this is the simplest thing. It's so simple that you can get an eye roll from it, like, oh, please, that's not going to work. I can tell you that these little things are enormous. Just counting to 5 before you open your mouth allows you the space and the time to consider the best way to handle the situation. And that just diffuses so much, and it's so little. And that's kind of why I Save the Change, just, little play on words, but just remember them, just these little changes, and stop putting all this pressure on yourself to, make enormous changes. Start small, and you have much better chance of success, and really much more effective.
Absolutely. I like all the little acronyms that you use in your podcast too, and the little snippets. I think the longest podcast you have is 11 minutes long. So listeners, if you want a boost of confidence, if you want a boost of validation that parenting is challenging, but it also can be joy, tune in to Save the Change. And Karen, tell listeners where they can find your books and what the titles are.
The Save the Change podcast you can get on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And again, I'm just starting that up, so there are only a few of them. And the Audible books are, longer versions of the same thing. The first one is called Take Back the House, Raising Happy Parents. And the second is called Worry Less, Parent Better. And you can find them both on Audible.
It's so cool to listen to your voice reading them too. I love it. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud to know you. And I hope to be able to collaborate with you on some of these initiatives that you're working on, because I think they're really important. And listeners, if any of you want to collaborate with Dr. Latimer, again, reach out to her, help out at the Y. That wellness initiative is just terrific. I also just want to say thank you again for finding the time. You are a very busy gal. So I want to say thank you for being on the show. And if you have any closing words of wisdom, please share them with us now.
Yeah, closing words of wisdom, a lot of pressure, but I would just like to say that we're all growing and changing and experimenting, and we're all just trying to figure this out. No one's doing it perfectly, no matter what you see on social media or hear about, or the bumper stickers on the back of the car. You're doing great. Do what you can for others. It'll make you feel better about yourself. And Jeannie, thank you so much. You are always doing things for other people. Thank you for having me on. This has been incredible and great to talk to you.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing more and more about all the things that you are involved in.
You too. Thank you.